Hello and welcome once again. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching this video. Today I wanted to do a quick recap, or not a recap, but an add-on follow-up to my previous video, which was regarding VOR planning and tracking. In that video, we went to some charts and we figured out what different VORs we wanted to fly to, got the frequencies, the Morse code. We looked at the flight path, and we looked at different controlled airspaces around what we're going to do and how to properly fly over them, how to read the altitudes on the chart, etc. So if you're interested in that sort of planning, it's a pretty lengthy video. It's about an hour. But if that topic interests you on how to manually fly it with no GPS, no autopilot, no nothing, just your six-pack gauges and hand flying the airplane, do check that out. I'll figure out how to put a link in the upper right. Never done that before, but I'll see what I can do about this one. Anyway, this video, I wanted to follow it up and show, again, not using GPS and autopilot, but rather enabling autopilot, but still manually inputting our course corrections and whatnot through the autopilot to basically do the same thing, but not having a hand fly. Now, based on that, the last video we already figured out we went to Putnam VOR, then to Providence VOR. I'm not going to do that whole flight. I'm basically going to set both of them in to the nav radios, and we'll start the flight to Putnam. It is fairly simple to do this, but I'll just show you how, and then once we're on the way to Putnam, and I'll deviate from it and show how to come back onto it. But then that'll pretty much be it for this video. So hopefully it's a condensed version, won't be as long as the last one. I am trying to make them shorter, a little more concise, but I'm still working on it. So thank you for your patience, and let's get going with this. So we know, based on the last video, that Putnam is our first waypoint, our first VOR that we want to go to. Now on the GPS 1000, this is the Cessna 172 Skyhawk. Our nav radio are up here. The highlighted in white is our standby, and on the right side is our active frequency. Same thing for nav 2. We have a couple of knobs here. The nav knob, the outer knob here will change the whole numbers of the frequency, and the inner knob will change the decimal numbers of the frequency. And of course we have our swap button, which would swap from standby to active. Now we know that Putnam, from the last video, is a frequency of 117.4. We're going to go ahead and set that 117 and 0.4. There we are. And now I'm going to swap that in. What we're going to notice this time, 117.35. Let's swap it back out. I went too far. 4. There we go. Now when we swap it, we're going to notice that it'll self-identify. So let's watch that. 117.4, and boom, P-U-T, Papa Uniform Tango. That's telling us it's identified it as the Putnam VOR. Last time we listened to the Morse code. We could still do that if we wanted to, and listen to nav 1. I think, yeah, here. See, there's the Morse code. But we don't really have to do that because the autopilot and the GPS figured it out for us, so we'll turn that off. So now let's set up Providence in nav 2. So if you look underneath the nav button, it says push 1, 2. Well, that'll switch you between nav 1 and nav 2. So if we just push on the center button, now our white standby has come down to nav 2, and we know that Providence is 115.6. So again, outer knob for the whole numbers, 115, inner knob for the decimals, 0.6. Let's get it right that time. There we go. And now we'll swap those. And again, it should self-identify. But if you didn't see the last video, we didn't hear the Morse code either at this point in the flight, because we're not either close enough or in a radio signal by sitting on the ground. We'll be able to identify it when we're up in the air. So let's go ahead and get up in the air. Now, since we're going to use autopilot, I like to do departures when I'm using autopilot by setting up the autopilot to do everything for me pretty much after rotation and after clearing obstacles. Then I'll go ahead and set my autopilot. So if I get it set up ahead of time, I can activate my autopilot after I've done that. Forgive me. Okay, so the way I like to do that is, let's go to 2,000 feet. So with our alt knob, that's altitude, the outer knob does 1,000 feet, the inner knob does hundreds of feet. So you can rotate it, 2, 3, 4, and this one does hundreds of feet down and up. I do have the Honeycomb Bravo, and I believe the update that came out the 13th had a fix for the Bravo, so let me see if that works. And so I'm going to use my Bravo to set things. And yeah, sure enough. Let's go to 2,000. Okay, my altitude set. And most people, and vertical speed, that's the VS button. And you have nose up, nose down, where you can set, I want to go up at 500 feet per minute, which is a comfortable climb. It's great for passengers, that sort of thing. But I like to do it a little bit differently. I mean, we're alone in the airplane at this point. I like to use this FLC button. And if you don't know what that is, that's flight level change. I'm going to activate that instead. It clears out the feet per minute. And instead we have a number over our airspeed tape. And what we do there is we use the same nose up and nose down to set an airspeed. Now I'm going to do that with my Bravo here. And I'm going to set it, I like to climb out on the 172. I think a nice comfortable one is about 80 knots. It's not the best climb, but I think it's a comfortable climb. Now I've set 80 knots above my speed tape. So what's going to happen is when I activate the autopilot, it'll pitch to maintain 80 knots. So whatever feet per minute we get is what we get when climbing at 80 knots to 2,000 feet. And we can see that reflected in green up here on the autopilot by FLC 80 knots. So it will climb to 2,000. Now the next thing I want to do when I activate autopilot, I don't want to be banking off to the right drastically. So I could use this heading knob to rotate that blue bug right here, which is the heading bug. I could do that. Or on my Bravo, which I'm really getting used to here, go to heading. Yep, I can rotate. Oh, that's working too. Lovely. And it seems that 10-degree bug is fixed. Wonderful. Okay. But in any event, if you look underneath the heading button, or the heading knob, it says push heading sync. All you gotta do is click on the knob, and that brings wherever your bug is right onto your current heading. And since we're sitting on the runway, I want to fly runway heading up to probably 900 to 1,000, and then I'll switch to following the nav. Or at least I'll adjust my heading to follow the nav. So I want to make sure that now I'm going to look at nav 1 for my CDI, which, if you remember, is course deviation indicator. Right now it's looking at GPS, but we don't have anything set in the GPS, and we're not using that. So I'm going to come down to the CDI label, and we'll watch these change here. And I'll click the little triangle here. And there we go, VOR1. So now it's looking at the VOR1, which would be Putnam. And at this course of north, the Putnam VOR is off to the left. Well, if we look at our course knob, this is above the knob actually. It's this one, see, it's got a triangle, so the triangle shaped knob. So, if we look underneath, there's a course center. You can barely make it out. So again, that's a push. Boom. That centers up our line. So from where we are right now, if we were to fly a heading, if we were to fly a heading of 279, that would bring us directly to the Putnam VOR, because that's the course we want. But our heading is 318. So what we're going to do is fly a runway heading. And then I'm going to activate the autopilot right after we clear the trees. And then I'm going to start adjusting our heading to intercept this, because this will come off center. So it looks like we're pretty much all set up. Oh, except I always double check up here in the green. We have 80 knot flight level change to 2,000 feet, but roll, ROL. That is not going to follow my heading. It's just going to try to make sure we don't roll. Because the one thing I forgot to do, click the heading button. There. Now we have HDG, so it's going to follow the heading. Pardon me, I just had a cough there. So it's going to follow our current heading based on this blue heading bug. We're going to change our flight level by 80 knots, at a speed of 80 knots, to 2,000 feet, and whatever rate of climb that gives us is what it gives us. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so let's go ahead and get off the ground, and we'll activate the autopilot and go from there. I'm gonna reset my view. Here we are. I'm gonna make sure we're back down to idle here. Going to release my parking brake. Feet on the rudder pedals, and full power. Now probably 55, 60 knots I'll rotate, and then I'll do my initial climb out somewhere around 70 knots until we clear the trees and any obstacles. And then once I feel comfortable that we've cleared enough that we can pitch to 80, there we go, gonna rotate now. Try to maintain about 70. Okay, once I feel we're high enough that I can pitch down for 80, I'll activate the autopilot. And yeah, we're pretty good there, so autopilot's engaged. So there we are. Now we're on our departure that we had nicely set up there. And yeah, we can take a look at some scenery. Yeah, pretty cool that, oh, a little frame lag there. But yeah. Having set the autopilot to help our departure, we can just kind of look at other things now. Look at that. We're in the air and Papa Victor Delta, Providence VOR has identified. Alright. So now, I want to figure out what course we want to fly to intercept Putnam. We know we have it set in NAV1, and VOR1 is what we're following, which is correlated to NAV1. So let's go ahead and center the course again, and the course is 277. So let's change our heading. We would use this knob. I'm going to use the Bravo to 277. Okay, that sets us up for 277. We should be looking out for traffic since we're VOR, or VFR rather. We'll do that real quick. We're not getting good frame rates today, but that's okay. So we're still climbing out about 80. We have PVD, Putnam. Course 277, we're flying 277. Let's get a little closer here. And you know what? We're a little off to the left, so let's just be a tiny bit OCD and let's go say 5 degrees to 272. Just for a few seconds. Center that back up. Again, that's pretty much how you do it. If you're off by just a little, adjust by a couple of degrees until it centers up again, and then go back to the course. So your heading's over here, and your course is over here. So this is what you need to follow to stay on track, and this is what you're doing to intercept it. So it's starting to come in a little bit, it looks like. Bring my throttle back a little bit because we're at almost 2,000, so let's go down to about 2,400 RPM, roughly. Okay, yep, needle's coming in, so now let's go to say 275. And it'll just slowly come more into center. I mean, and really where we're at right now is pretty much good enough. So yeah, let's just go ahead and now set the heading back to 277. We have heading 277, course 277, and we're actually reading 276 on our compass. I'll go heading 278, and hopefully that bumps us. Yeah, there's 277 now. And this is what our actual heading is. This is what we're programmed heading. This is our programmed course, or desired course, and this is what we're actually flying. So that's really the number we want to match the course. Oh, no. It's bounced between 277 and 278 now. Oh, there we go. The autopilot heading back to 277. That's what this one is. And it should stabilize, so I'll just leave it there. All right, so now let's go ahead and intercept another one. And we know the Providence one's out there. Oh, and again, we know when we were going to fly over Providence, we had to get to 5,500 feet. Lots of reasoning for that. Do check out the other video if you get a chance, and you have an hour and you're interested as to how we figured it out. But we do need to climb to 5,000 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and change my altitude to 5,000. At 5,000. And then I'm going to do, again, a flight level change of 80 knots. Add full power. So now it's pitching and doing all that for us. It'll drop the nose as we get slower. You can see down here, we're approaching 80, so the nose will start to come down. Oh yeah, well we want 5,500. So let's go change the altitude again to 5,500. There we go. So now we're going to climb to 5,500. Now while we're doing that, let's go ahead and start intercepting, because we got a great track to Putnam right now. Let's go ahead and intercept Providence. And the way we're going to do that is because we're on heading, it's okay. We're not following this nav, if you will, because we'd have to hit the nav button and it would follow this for us. But we're not doing that. So let's hit CDI button once again. And we're going to change, instead of VOR1, we're going to look at VOR2. So we hit that, boom, VOR2. Come over to our triangle button here for the course, which outside is your barometric pressure. That'll set this to 9.9 inches. And the inside is your course. You could change that if you want. And we'll click that to center it. So 196 from here is where we would want to steer to get to Providence. So I'm going to come over and change my heading now. Heading to, and we're already drifting off, so probably 196, let's go 190 for now. And yeah, I'm using the Bravos. It's nice. I wish it would, it's funny. They fixed the 10-degree bug. Now I kind of wish it was there when you spin it a bunch. When you spun it a bunch. Spin it. What am I saying? Yeah, 190 for now. Now let's come a little further. Let's go to say 170. I don't want to do a quite 45-degree intercept because the needle's not that far from center. But we're going to watch that start to come in again. And you notice it's different. It's more of a hollow line versus the solid line we had before. And that's another way, without looking at the label, you can differentiate what VOR you're looking at. On your CDI, that is. Yeah, I think it's starting to come in. Now again, I do like using flight level change. I do use vertical speed quite often, but in this one I wanted to show the flight level change. I may or may not do a video on vertical speed. I can tell you that another YouTuber by the name of Hudson, he has some great videos on vertical speed and some autopilot stuff. So do check them out. I'll make sure to put a link in the description, and you know, I'll remind again at the end of the video here. But check him out. He's got some good stuff. Yep, we're starting the center, so I'm going to go ahead and change now to, say, 190. Actually, I'm going to go right to 196 for now and see where we end up. It might end up right on center. You change that heading to 196 to match the course. This should hopefully match 196 and stay centered. But we can always do a degree or two to the right, of course. Excuse me, to do a couple degrees to the right of the course and make sure this stays centered. But it looks like we're pretty good. So that just tracks it. And it's really about that simple to use the autopilot to track VORs. Oh, what do we have down there? What was that? North Central State. That's an airport in Rhode Island. And we're coming up on 5,500 as well. But it's really pretty much that simple. I can end the video here. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you made it to the end here. Like I said, Hudson has great information about peripherals and peripherals, setting them up, how to do the settings in them. He does reviews and, you know, old school classic gaming too. Things like with the Commodore 64. So it's really good stuff. You should check them out. Also, do check out another YouTuber called Sim Fanatic. He does a lot of point-to-point stuff in jetliners. Just has a lot of fun on live streams. Usually does them late night for East Coast US. And of course, late night, or, you know, 9:30 on the East Coast, 8:30 Central, somewhere in there. And it goes for a few hours. It's really fun. But check him out. He does lots of good things. Switch back and forth between X-Plane 11 and Microsoft Flight Simulator. Really, really good stuff. So check both those guys out. I'll put links in the description. Once again, thank you very much for joining. Hope you got something out of this. And you know, I'll try to keep these shorter from now on the best I can. But there will be some long ones. But nonetheless, thank you very much, and we will see you next time.